Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first panel of the afternoon. Wherever you're joining from, morning, afternoon, or evening, thank you for joining us, and welcome to a conversation, an exciting conversation, all about what it means to merge worlds and combine the virtual with reality. As you know, as I mentioned in the introduction, we're fast tracking towards our Enter the Metaverse conference next month. So this is very pertinent to that discussion. I'm really excited to welcome some amazing panelists to join us. As Web3 businesses are slowly transitioning into the Web3 world, from rumors of Amazon launching a token to Web2 companies introducing utility NFTs, the newfound possibilities between these two worlds are endless and starting to merge together. So on this panel, we're going to be talking with some exciting leaders in the Web2 and Web3 space to explore exactly how to be successful in this new commercial landscape. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our exciting panelists here today, an all-female panel, which is wonderful, myself not included, of course. I'm just going to take it clockwise from where I'm sitting and just ask each of you to introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're from, and what your role capacity is within your organization. And perhaps just start us off with a little sort of high-level flavor of like, what excites you about the future of the merging worlds. So I'll throw it to you, Ekaterina, first. Please give us a quick introduction.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Kat, and I look after business development efforts at Gemini. We are a regulated crypto exchange, custody, and we have lots of other services for institutions and retail users to enter the metaverse. We own a company which is called Nifty Gateway, which is a leading marketplace. It's a digital art online auction platform for non-fungible tokens, for NFTs. My crypto journey started many years ago. I was excited about this new technology, but what excites me about blockchain is its applications, sort of not just in finance, but in other spheres of our world, in our reality. So today we're talking about fashion, which is extremely exciting. And there are so many applications from NFTs and art to essentially tracing supply chains when you are producing some fashion goods or luxury goods. What excites me? Well, I believe that we're right now living in this world when we're out of the lockdown. So we are spending more time with our colleagues outside, meeting other people, but our digital identity is still so important. So despite the fact that we're now on the streets, our digital identity is as important as ever. So whatever we put online, whatever our avatars look like, whatever our the way our LinkedIn looks and the way we will present our avatars in the metaverses, including our self-expression in the metaverse, I think that is going to be very interesting.
Very exciting. Yeah, I mean, we want to look as cool in the metaverse as we do in the real world, right?
Exactly.
So Amber, I'm going to throw it over to you. Give us a quick introduction to who you are and where you're joining us from and who you're representing today. Yeah. And then, of course, what excites you about the metaverse, of course.
Of course. Hello, my name is Amber McGurr. I am calling you from Los Angeles, California this morning. So good morning. It's early over here. I work for Human Park, which is the second project out of the VHS studio, same studio that made Zed Run. So pretty successful blockchain game. We are right now in the development stages of getting our game ready. We have dropped a couple of NFTs to our users. So it all started, I love this because the fashion thing is very applicable to us. The first avatars, the NFTs that we dropped to our users are called nudes. So it was like these little naked characters, right? That they were basically available or, able to customize with things like tattoos and different like artistic things. And we are slowly introducing things like wearables and skins that people can, either you can buy it, you can earn it. We're still developing different ways for people to be able to utilize that. Our game is in development at the moment. So we're really excited for that to, be in existence for people to use. And we're most excited about the idea of self-expression in the metaverse and in Web3. So Human Park, our aim is to be like a hub of entertainment, and interoperability is a big goal for us. So people coming into, from different worlds, different, metaverses to come play, introduce each other to themselves, socialize, express themselves with things like fashion. So really excited about the idea of entertainment and self-expression when it comes to Web3.
100%, yeah. I mean, it's one of the most exciting aspects, I think, just being able to express ourselves in an unshackled, creative way. And yeah, we'll get into that very soon. But without further ado, let me introduce Pierina, or let you introduce yourself with the same questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. I'm the founder and CEO of FlickPlay, which is a Web3 social app where people can unlock and flex their NFTs in the real world. Our vision has always, I started the company about 3 years ago, and our vision has always been creating a more synchronized experience in the real world for humans with the things that they own digitally. So we're all about how all these things that you own digitally can become cultural objects of the real world and interact and have value, social and utility value for humans in the way physical products have. Obviously, that includes wearables, that includes physical art that is tied to the fabric of our cities, that includes absolutely any type of digital object with utility. I come from a background, 10 years of background at the intersection of design and technology. In my previous life, I was an architect for Frank Gehry, and rolled my way into the VR space as the technology started to commercialize, until I rolled my way into the entrepreneurial world. And while launching my first company at over 30 stores nationally at Nordstrom, I realized this huge social disruption that social media was having in how we build our digital identities, and what are the actions that we take in the real world to shape that story that thousands of millions of people identify ourselves with in daily basis. And 3 years ago, I say, what if we build a platform at the intersection of gaming and social that powers the next generation of digital identities, and is one that is not constrained by the reality that we live in our everyday life, but by the reality that we want to create for ourselves in the real world, and storytell and amplify through a social platform.
Amazing. It's yeah, I think there's actually quite a lot of synergies in some of the things that are being spoken about here in those introductions alone. I think it launches me into a first question that I'd like to talk about and to begin with, and we'll get onto the technology side of things, the NFTs, the AR, the VR in a bit more detail later. But I wanted to start in this question that we've touched on a few times in the introduction, which is almost about the kind of the socio-cultural impacts and self-expression and identity, because I think that is one of the most exciting, like, unlocked features of looking at building these metaverse environments. So I'd love to just start with that question then. I mean, how does digital fashion and the future of kind of a metaverse environment where you are able to own your assets and design yourself and your sense of identity, how does this expand our sense of self-expression? And I'd love to put that to Amber first, who touched on this initially.
I mean, gosh, it's hard to say. I would say it opens it up infinitely, right? To express yourself, especially with fashion. When you think about it, in the real world, you can only get what you can afford, right? If you see these things on the runway, these like high fashion things, like it's only available to certain people. And not only that, some of these things you see on the runway, they're literally not for real life. Like, you can't wear that on the streets. It's not for the average person. So when I start to think about it, like, oh, like in the metaverse, you can design and think up these crazy out of this world things you can't even think about, like in a physical world, but you can actually wear that and express yourself that way in a digital world, like with these like, things you see on the runway that are super avant-garde, and like I could never wear that on the street, or like physically, like it's impossible. Like I don't know if you saw Bella Hadid get like sprayed down with the dress, into a dress, like with like full paint. Like, okay, cool. Artistically amazing, gorgeous, beautiful. I love it. The artistry of it, but you can't do that in the real world. You go, that's just one example. You go to the metaverse, you're in Web3, you could do that. You could do that plus, a million other things, and you can just express yourself in these lots of different ways. And I think that's really cool as far as like the future, when we start, being able to express ourselves when it becomes more mainstream. I mean, I also think that it's not going to become, it's not going to revolutionize the fashion world until Web3 becomes a more mainstream thing. And at that point, we will see, the importance and the impact is going to be felt a lot more. But I do love that idea of self-expression, just the windows, the doors blown wide open, right? So all these people can come in, and people that maybe don't have the resources to go to fashion school, or buy the materials that they need to design these things, even as like a sample. You don't need that. Everything, you have these limitless options in the metaverse to design, to create, to express yourself, to wear these things and show it off. And I think that's really amazing, and kind of it levels the playing field for creatives specifically. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, 100%.
Just one layer. Yeah.
Amber,
Yeah.
I'm afraid, is my screen frozen?
No, you're good.
Can you
you're
see
good.
me and hear me well? Okay, cool. I just wanted to add something. I see essentially just a different angle to this question. So self-expression is all about your own identity, but I believe that through our metaverse, through our avatars, we can also show that we belong to a tribe. Have you noticed that people who have bought certain NFTs and who have become supporters of certain NFT projects, like the Bored Apes Yacht Club, or the followers of a certain artist? So, for example, Back or Xcopy, or some of the other artists that have been dropped on our platform, like Nifty Gateway. We have seen that people now use those NFTs as their avatars for Twitter and WhatsApp, and just to show to the rest of their network that they are part of this group. I've seen people use their I've seen people, for example, use CryptoPunks that they have purchased through some NFT marketplaces as their avatars. But I have also seen that followers of artists use that artwork that they have purchased as their avatars to show that they belong to a certain group of aficionados, or they belong to a certain group, or like it's a tribe thing. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I will say, I forgot to mention, my role at Human Park is social and community manager. And I talk about the communities I come from a more traditional background in marketing, and the difference between the communities with you would experience there, and the communities in this crypto, NFT world are insanely different. You're right. People have so much pride, and they're down to represent, and there's this camaraderie of community that comes with this industry I've never seen it before. I haven't seen it to this extent. So yeah, that's going to come into play as well with different artists, or people are just super into representing their interests, right? And I love that Human Park, one of our goals is to be this hub of showing off your different NFTs, this different artwork that you have, and being a hub of kind of like an aggregator to show off these things that you're interested in and that you want to represent and that you want to put out there to the world, and let everybody know hey, I'm part of this crew. I'm part of this, this project that I love and I'm really proud of. And so we do see that merch, fashion, our community, they're always asking for merch. They want merch. And we're okay, well, we'll make it for you. But that's it's so secondary, but they want to represent this project and this community that they're a part of, really bad. And that's a super interesting point. I think that is going to play a really big role of people how they're going to express themselves. A lot of that, of what's going to go into it, is projecting what they're interested in. And like, I like this music, I like this artist, I like this brand, of clothing. That'll be really cool to see, like, as an amalgamation in your avatar, or like this collection that you have to express yourself. So 100% agree that community is king in this industry, and will play a big role in, I think, pushing every aspect of it forward, even fashion.
Yeah, I mean, let's dig a little deeper into that then. I mean, when we talk about community being, and it's, there's waves of new communities growing all the time out of this, and some OG communities that are like, hundreds of thousands to millions strong. Like it's really like it's crazy, like the scale that's happening here. So like, if this event, and where we come into this with our educational events is to talk about bridging the gap between Web 2, Web 3, how can brands, and how are brands, traditional Web 2 brands, let's talk fashion right now, how can they, or are they leveraging this sense of community, which, traditionally was you buy, generally speaking, you buy a product from the say Calvin Klein, you buy something from them, and it's a personal relationship. But now you're part of a collective on the same mission or something like that. How can brands leverage that new, coming back to the social cultural progression in the industry? How can brands start to leverage that, and how are they from your experiences in the space?
I think that when, like, and following track on what you were saying, that now people are part of a collective, I actually disagree a little bit with that, because if you, and even if we push back to tie to the previous question too, like, if you look into the three fundamental sources of identity and status for humans, because that's what matters, like technology and every new development is amplifying that, is the communities you're a part of, your popularity within your communities, and how the things that you own, whether are physical, digital, tangible, untangible, monetary or not, builds your reputation within your community, right? These are like the pillars in which social platforms, starting from Facebook to Instagram and TikTok, have enabled us to amplify our digital identity, and these are through likes, views, comments, and when I really think about wearables or fashion in the metaverse, I always go back to what it means for a human, for a person, to go to a store and purchase a physical product, and what's the utility that it has to it. Because I do think that there is this misconception that anyone that buys something digitally can want to become best friend with the person next to them that own it. And some people wants to have with certain items a more passive or a more engaged um, 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 relationship with the community tied to the asset that they're purchasing. And it's okay, because you might go to a Gap store and buy a plain white t-shirt, and you won't go to the street and talk to every person that you see with a Gap white t-shirt, but you might own a collectible or a limited edition shoe, and if you see someone in the street, you're going to approach them and say, oh my God, where do you get it? When do you get it? I have it too, right? So I do think that we need to start by making that differentiation, so that there isn't a bias or a confusion when Web2 brands are trying to penetrate the Web3 space, and they're actually able to build authentic experience for their consumers. Because, like, at least how we focus on FlickPlay on helping brands like breach into the metaverse, is the idea that in every real world location there could be a digital store where when you go to our map, you're able to purchase a digital product, and that digital product, you can wear it in AR, you can story tell. If you're in a hike and you're not wearing the shoes that you want to tell a story with to build your digital identity, you're able to wear that pair of shoes that you purchased and tell your story and those have like a strong value for both consumers and brands. Because from the brand standpoint, for the first time in history, brands are able to track the full user journey from when someone purchases their product to every time and every location that their fans or their brand members interact with that product. So in the real world, if you buy a pair of Nike shoes, you can put it in your closet, never wear it again, and the brand will never know. They know that at some point you purchased something. In the metaverse and in platforms that bridge digital and physical, like FlickPlay, you're able to identify every time that person that bought a pair of shoes interact with that shoe doing a hike, going to the beach, going to a restaurant, and you're able to fully understand the context in which your community operates on and evolve to operate on. And from an identity standpoint for consumers, buying a digital product and having it as easy as in your phone right now, and at some point it will be in your wearables, in your in your AR goggles. Once we get there, it's the ability for you to constantly customize your everyday experience through the lens of the reality and the identity that you want to build for yourself.
I mean, this is the beauty of identity when we talk about the metaverse too. Is we're actually looking at a space where you can be one persona for your social environments versus a different for your work environment. You know, say we're looking at a
It
work.
already happens. It already
Yeah.
happens. No one, if you look, ask your friends or look in your on your Instagram and see how many friends of yours portray their life on Instagram that matches their everyday reality, right? It's like we have already through the in the last 5 years work to re-architect how we present ourselves online, right? And I do think that as we think about bridging those two realities, digital goods are gonna play a huge role on how we embrace that reality instead of build a separation from that reality.
Really like that point about kind of on one hand having separate realities and on the other hand bringing them together. So I was just thinking that on one hand we have seen this sort of a FOMO effect in the big brands. So just in the last year, right, in January this year, Balmain released the Balmain Barbie collection, and they launched the famous dolls to the metaverse. We know that Dolce & Gabbana did their collection of one-of-a-kind pieces, which you can never find. Sort of you cannot buy it sort of in stores, like one-of-a-kind artisan work, and that has been crafted in real life, but also it was launched in the metaverse. The collection was called Collezione Genesi. Then we've seen the Gucci bag, which was exclusively available in the metaverse, which costs users $4,000 or even more. So we've seen such examples, and we see that brands are leveraging the digital life, our digital identity, in order to market their products and build a sense of community with their customers. But something else I believe that is happening is NFTs have the potential to become a powerful accelerator for the creator economy, and we will have lower barriers to entry for individual creatives who will be able to earn a living through digital commerce. So, of course, so our platform, Nifty Gateway, only deals with digital art, but there are other platforms which deal with other objects. So there is a platform which is called Exclusible, and they deal with luxury objects. But then there is a story of this really interesting brand called Faith Connection. Faith Connection have been around for some time. Maria Buccellati was the founder, and she has always been focusing on sort of interesting creative designs. She's been working with multiple artists. She has an incredible creative background, and her brand was quite a niche one, and it wasn't so well known. And what happened last year, they started a collaboration with a platform which is called Faith Tribe, and they launched a DAO. They launched their own tokens, and they launched a collection of NFTs, which they presented at the Art Basel in Miami in 21. And what happened is that took this traditional, very niche, almost artisan fashion brand into this new level of exposure. And what they do is they collaborate with artists who produce one-of-a-kind pieces and lots of personalized pieces. And then obviously you get the NFT, you get the token, which proves your ownership of this item, but it also has the information about who was the artist who created those certain patterns and designs. You get the information about the materials and the manufacturing process and how this item was born. And at the same time, you have the wearable. And I've seen that there are some pieces which literally have the chip sewn into the jacket, and you have this incredible experience. And what it can also do, this can also propel, I would say, more shared economy and more sustainable fashion. Because when you have one-of-a-kind pieces, which you treat like artwork, this is something that is worth then selling on or gifting or just keeping. So instead of participating in fast fashion and being environmentally not friendly, you suddenly become sort of, you feel attached because there is a history to each piece, and then you generate circular economy.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about all these things.
I mean, it all ties together, doesn't it? I mean, there's so many benefits to these technologies, and I mean, what I do, without going too in the weeds on it, right? And you know, there's a million use cases for NFTs. Who here wants to do us all a favor, for anyone who's joining from, you know, the Web 2 world and as of yet doesn't understand the kind of the core of what an NFT can bring to them in the business world? Who wants to start us off and just give us a quick, like, what's an NFT and why is it valuable to businesses? Especially, let's take fashion, but you know, it goes beyond fashion as well. Who wants to take that and just give us the once over on the NFT? What's an NFT and how is it valuable to business?
Yeah, so I can jump in. So I think like there are multiple utilities when you think about Ekina was just mentioning about the creators economy, right? And the ability that and what exists, but what is it? Like how do you actually build the creators economy, right? And I do think like at core, when you think about Web 1 being you receive information, to Web 2 being you receive information and share information. This is the era of Facebook. Or of Instagram, that you're able to put information that people are able to consume, and you're able to consume information that people create. I think that NFTs became the first application of blockchain. And when you think about like why it's important and what how it's connected to us being able to finally materialize the creators economy that we have talked so much about in the last 2 years, is the idea that now you have a public ledger that is constantly tracking any type of transaction that you create when you input information, right? So before, you would do a post on Facebook, you would do a post on Instagram, you would create an image that you would own, and there was no traceability on how the internet would spread it, and the value creation, the cultural value creation that you build from it, the financial value creation that certain brands benefit from it. And now, because of this public ledger and because we can tokenize the content that we create, we're able to track the lifetime use and value that these digital items win over time, right? So when you think from a business use case, both for consumers and brands, are many interesting applications, because for for the first time in history, platforms that are building up the utility of NFTs are not focusing on the traditional business model of advertising and are not purely amplifying behaviors for in humans that will contribute towards keeping the eyeballs in one place. But we're starting to talk about interoperability of experience, and someone being able to purchase something on FlickPlay and being able to interact with it in the sandbox game. And you know why that's possible, and why platforms like FlickPlay are willing to partner with sandbox and vice versa, is because whatever digital object people interact with FlickPlay that they carry along to sandbox, both platforms benefit from their holders extending that utility. Because if an object that you purchase in the sandbox game becomes a cultural phenomenon on FlickPlay, any transaction that happens with that asset on FlickPlay, sandbox will benefit financially from it. So from the get-go, the business models behind how brands prioritize the type of features that they develop, the things that they enable consumers to do, have changed. And now influencers, instead of having to reach out to brands to get paid to wear a product, brands are going to be able to say, we have released 5 million items, shoes in the market, and we want to pay the shoes with the 5% shoes with the top engagement every time their holders use it. So we're going to start to see new ways for people not only to benefit from the creation of assets, but from the culture building of digital assets across platforms. And I do think that a lot of times when brands, Web2 brands, think, what can I do? They think that they need to go all in into fully digital experience and explore behaviors that are not a natural or native to their consumer. But there are bridges of experiences that you can create to still be part of the metaverse, right? And still put your foot in the water, and explore that early inception without having to actually interact within products that do not like have achieved some sort of like a volume, volume in community to really be able to track the value generated for brands from a traditional Web2 way.
If I were to answer this question, I would go through a couple of just bullet points. So what are the features of an NFT, right? It's a digital asset, right? It represents some internet collectibles. It has its authentic certificate created by blockchain technology, right? It is unique and cannot be forged or manipulated. And you can also exchange your NFTs. You can buy and sell them using cryptocurrency. So these are somewhat key characteristics of what an NFT is. And I would distill the use cases in the fashion industry to three main streams. So first, they can be used for authentication. So it is a proof of purchase and authenticity. And a brand for each particular item or each particular good or story or whatever is being created can you can actually like trace the ownership, and you can show that you really own this unique good, this unique piece, right? Then you can of course use it for marketing, and this is what we've seen in the luxury industry. We've seen from many brands, and I've given examples before. And then finally, it's the virtual fashion, and that is your digital avatar. And that is the self-expression that you can have in the metaverse. And that is Amber's domain.
Yeah. I mean, I had a little bit of a different angle to talk about like how, I mean, I'm kind of just pivoting how NFTs can be beneficial for these like more Web2, traditional companies. Rewards. that's a big part of, purchasing or owning an NFT, especially when you're talking about community, is you own this thing, you have access to exclusive events, exclusive, things you can go to, meetups, or, different rewards that you can, earn and have that are exclusive to people that own these things. So I think that's really important for brands that are looking to get into the Web3 space or to get into NFTs or offering that to their consumers, is to also make sure they're attaching this utility of the added benefits. What else do I get? Like, as an average consumer, there's always going to be people that are like, stupid, it's just a picture of a purse. Like, why do I want that? Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And we, as people in this industry, we have to go, it's a continual process of education. And part of it, I think the easiest thing, a low-hanging fruit, is, well, when you get this, not only do you own it and you have proof of ownership, and there's all these things that go along with this, this digital file, but also, these brands need to be thinking about their community and attaching utility to these items. So, say, this big luxury, fashion house has an item that you can get. What if it's attached also, you also get an exclusive entry to this ultra VIP party or ultra VIP, like, IRL fashion show that you can come to, and you can come meet community members like you that are, also have access to these, different things. So I think rewards is a big part of bridging that gap. And, it's always, you're always going to have to mix in, real life things to keep people interested. Especially at this stage, until it's full blown, VR, Web3, everybody's in on it. We all get it, right? Like, Gen Z needs to grow up, and then it'll be there, right? Like, that's what it's going to be. That the younger generations are more and more into their digital identities, and there's more importance there. So it's going to happen. And I think rewards is a big part. If you look at, this isn't really fashion, but Starbucks, they're about to release their reward system, right?
Exactly.
Saw that
I was
article.
just about to talk about that. Although that is not really fashion, that
Not
is the
fashion,
exact
but
concept. This is us. So this is Nifty Gateway. So that is that exact story. So through the the members of the Starbucks Odyssey program now can purchase collectible coffee beans for use in their personal sort of coffee maker, and that is exactly the type of collaboration that we have pursued.
Yeah.
So it's the Nifty Gateway reward program with Starbucks.
It blew my mind when I saw that.
I'm glad that you pointed this out.
It's going to open people's minds, people that aren't interested in this world. It's going to educate them in a way that they understand with these rewards programs. Like, hey, I already have the app on my phone. I use it every day. Now we're just kind of integrating this. They're kind of sneakily teaching their audience and their consumers about NFTs and about Web3 and about utilizing it in their everyday life. It's not that complicated. It works, and they have these crazy rewards and things attached to it, like you can win a trip to Colombia to like the most famous Starbucks location ever if you own, earn enough points to earn these rewards and own these NFTs. So yeah, that's an amazing case study. Watch it. I like signed up immediately. I don't even have the Starbucks app, but like I made sure to like get on the list to see how this is going to play out, because I think it's definitely going to revolutionize, like open people, the mainstream eyes to this whole world.
Do you think, maybe a controversial question for NFT enthusiasts and builders, but do you think it's almost important to drive this mass adoption that we start taking the conversation of NFT out the equation and start talking more about this is a loyalty program, and but it's immutable, and it's like, here's your record, and it's on a ledger, and it'll be forever, evolving with your engagement with this brand or service, or is that probably what would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that, and I have this, it's a controversial conversation because it's a chicken and egg. On one side, you need to position yourself within the space, and on the other side, you hate the way that you need to position yourself in, because I do, and it's kind of assuming that you call every product, I don't know, an asset, right? Like it's like, or you, a manufactured asset, right? Like you kind of, it deceives the whole purpose, and we're constantly talking internally because about the when to make the pivot, right? When is the right time? When do we stop educating people on why on the value of these type of digital assets that they can win in the platform, and how easy it is to just describe it for what it is versus say what it actually is, right? Because to me, it's not an NFT. It's either a t-shirt, it's either a coupon, it's either an experience, it's either art, it's a collectible. My biggest controversial topic in the office is that I do not think that every NFT should be called a collectible, right? A collectible has a very specific utility and reason for existing, right? But it's just like one of those things where it's still so early, and the prime early adopters of this space are still kind of keeping the shields up and just protecting their ecosystem for it to not be diluted. That you need to sometimes you're either on one side or the other one. And but I do think that starting to make the bold movement of stop calling these items
Always collectible.
from a technical term will help the mass adoption for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, like, take for example, if we talk about retail and brands, right? If they're going to use use NFTs to track the supply chain of their products from like manufacturer to market, which is another really cool use case for the sort of commercial landscape. They're not going to talk about that specific, like, oh, it went from depot A to B. That's not a collectible asset, but it's a ledger of the fact that this has moved from here to here, and it's important. Or like tying it to its sustainable sourcing, which is what Katerina talked about with that project earlier, where they, you can actually tell the whole life cycle of that product if a physical item, and then have a digital twin for it, which is, I mean, it's sky's the limit really with what we can do here. But okay, I'm realizing we're pushed for time, and it's so easy to get deep into the weeds with some of these conversations. So there are a few key topics I just want to put out, and maybe we can just look at some, either take one person who's really keen to answer, or we'll just go for like a punchy sort of one-liner answer for a few of these, just to get through a few of these topics. So we touched on earlier how, let's take it back to digital fashion. This is kind of like a two-part question. What does digital fashion offer that the traditional fashion doesn't? I think we covered that quite well, actually, already. Amber gave quite a good description, but she touched on there as well in that question around tackling environmental impacts of the metaverse fashion and what digital and virtual fashion items can mean. So I wanted to just put that out there. Like, what does the future of like a more sustainable fashion industry look like, and how are NFTs and meta fashion tackling that?
I think I can start quickly. I mean, it's pretty obvious that you can, avoid a lot of this overproduction of physical goods with a digital version. So it can do things, like the samples that we're making, the, modeling, the marketing, all of that can be done virtually and digitally. That completely, gets rid of that waste. And you can also test the market to see are people going to be interested in a garment like this, a piece like this, an item like this. If it's popular, then let's go through with the production and like manufacture these things without so much waste. If we put it out there to our community and it bombs, don't make it. Don't waste that stuff. Don't waste the time. Don't waste the materials. Don't waste the shipping. None of that. So just like surface level, so obvious how helpful it can be to the environment and to slow down fashion in Web3.
The items also don't decay over time, right? So like, wear it as much as you like. Anyone, Katerina, you might wanted to add on that.
Yeah, and if I were to talk about something which is a digital NFT plus essentially a physical good, right? Something that can be touched. So something that Nifty Gateway did. We partnered with a fashion designer, Vivian Tom, and we presented a collection of clothes, collection of items, which were inspired by some of the NFT awkward Austrian collection that Nifty Gateway owns. So that means that all of these items, whoever has purchased them, they would feel a certain level of attachment, and it inspires us to reduce waste and to keep those items for longer and to potentially resell them. And I know I'm repeating myself, but this, I would say, inspires the circular economy. There is a very interesting sort of platform called Vestiaire Collectif, and they inspire circular economy. When you have an easy approval authenticity, and when you have designers who have put in lots of artistic value in or artistic effort into each of the pieces, it means that we want to reduce our use of just fast fashion and keep the items for longer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it inspires the second-hand marketplace as well, right? Like, I mean, that's something that's very well known and popularized in kind of, if you're in the NFT sphere, there's OpenSea, there's Rarible, you know, Nifty Gateway, and a million other platforms that are, but they're some of the bigger players who are providing these second-hand markets, I guess. And, you know, we've got, in the real world, we've got like, you know, charity shops and jumble sales and thrift stores. But how does ownership transform when we're looking at a secondary marketplace for the fashion metaverse?
You can track the lifetime super fan of your brand. I think today brands are able to know when someone shops something. They don't know if they shopped it for themselves, if they shopped it for someone, if they use it or not. Like for the first time in history, like a brand is able to click refresh and have a fresh list of wallets, or and if they do it within a social ecosystem like Flickplay, a fresh list of user accounts that are holders of their wearable, of their product, and that are dynamically interacting with it. And if they sell it, they're gonna get that new person that became a fan. So it's like from a community building standpoint, like if a brand really wants to build a brand tied to the values of who their consumer is becoming, not who the consumer used to be. This is the closest we have ever gotten to that.
Yeah, amazing. Look, we're very close on time, so I just want to put one last question to you. Has anyone got like a super hard stop and needs to fly? Okay, it's just really like touching on how do we engage with the digital fashion in the metaverse, and understanding, you know, we talked about NFTs and what, you know, underpins a digital asset and the potential of that, but how do we experience it, and how's that going to evolve in time as the metaverse progresses? So like talking about, is it desktop based or you know, through a virtual augmented reality landscape? How do you guys see, or, you know, are you seeing the future of this evolving in time?
I'm partial on this, but I do think that it will start with our phones. It will move, and I'm talking about mass adoption. I think that VR goggles are going to have a utility, but assuming that everyone in the world will become a gamer and that we will live through our VR glasses, I don't think it's realistic. I was in the space for quite a good amount of time, and I do think that it will have a utility if you want to go to a concert, if you're someone that likes fully socializing in a digital environment. That will be a more immersive way. But even today, people that play Sims, people that play Roblox, they still go out in the world and meet people, right? And hang out with real people. So I do think that it's going to start by first building a connection between our everyday reality. Then it's going to start by using technology like VR, desktop experiences to extend that experience in different ways, concerts, more immersive environments, more like a very specific type of experiences. And once AR goggles evolve to become what we want them to become, we're going to have a fully synchronized reality between the world that we want to live in and how that overlays in the world that we currently live in.
100%.
Yeah, I'd say to piggyback off of that, it's going to, like, right now, we're going to show off the way we show off every day. Like, it'll be on social platforms, right? If I own this NFT or I own this digital asset, I'm going to show it off and use it the same way I do everything else digitally. So I think it's going to start and maintain, be maintained on social platforms. And those are going to be, the first to start changing and fitting in. It's going to grow with this Web3 experience and the metaverse, and those are going to, once those like meet in between, is where we're going to actually see people showing off digital fashion. Like right now I only see it, like literally, like, okay, socials on social platforms, that's where it's going to live. It's pretty much siloed and contained. If you buy it, it's going to stay within whatever project you like, it's associated with, and you can only show it off and, kind of live in this world that's like siloed off and separate until interoperability becomes a real thing. I don't see it. Again, yeah. And like, I'm on the same page with like VR. Like, it's cool. It's really cool. I don't think it's ever going to be like, we're all just in this world wearing glasses and we don't come out. Absolutely not. So it's going to be a blended, combined situation until these two worlds kind of meet. And like, who knows when that's going to happen? Nobody knows. So for now, I see it, like just growing and being shown the same way we show off our everyday lives, like on social platforms.
Given my product background, I've been building apps for retail and institutional clients. What I believe is the key driver for adoption is the user experience. Easier UX, easy adoption, easier everything. And then you're going to have lots of people just starting to use whatever product that you have. And to me, what seems the easiest pathway to adoption right now is augmented reality through your filters for your phone. And something that I've spent some time playing with was when during the lockdown, Dolce & Gabbana released the digital filters, so the Snapchat filters, Instagram filters of their sunglasses collection. And you could try on the sunglasses through your phone, and that augmented reality bit went really well. So something simple, easy, but something that we can all relate to. Really comes down to whether this is usable and whether this is useful. So for entertainment purposes and things like that. That is kind of my techie background,
So very use case specific, and we think about whether it's VR, AR, gaming, like immersive gaming, going to a concert, VR, but like everyday adoption, perhaps more so than an augmented layer on the world around us. You can almost see like a digital runway where everyone's chilling with their AR glasses, and everyone's got, all the models have a very bland attire on, but then the AR filters over the top showcase all of that amazing fashion wear that has been designed. Something like that. It's sky's the limit, coming back to that. That brings us to the end of this session, I think. We're slightly over, and I do appreciate we've got someone waiting for their next talk. So I wanted to say a big thank you to all of you, Katerina, Amber, Pirina. Really appreciate your insights onto this. For everyone listening in, thank you as well, of course, for your questions and engaging and giving us some thumbs up and emojis. And yeah, this was live streamed on YouTube, so it will be available on YouTube after. So if you're keen to catch up on this afterwards, you can check it out there. So yeah, thank you again, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you all in the metaverse in sometime in the near to midterm future. Thank you very much.